and live.
Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? You already know what it is. We are back with another Game of the Week preview. We got the rematch between the New York Knicks and the Golden State Warriors, and you know the New York Knicks are coming back for revenge, especially one Karl-Anthony Towns against Draymond Green. Don't sleep on us, Draymond, okay? And who better to help preview this game? None other than my friend, first time on the show, Natalie Esquire, producer and digital creator at NBC Sports. You know what we got to do. Hit that thumbs up button for the crew. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Also, make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Natalie, what's happening? How you doing today?
Well, thank you so much for having me. 2 days in a row, New York sports shows have had me on to talk Warriors. I don't know if that's good or bad because some people in the comments said I was delusional in the last conversation I had. So let's see what your guys you were saying.
Hey, it's New York, you know what it is. So everyone's got. We are tightly wound. We are always angry, especially when we lost for the first time against the Warriors. You got Draymond talking crazy afterwards on his own podcast. So we're a little aggy right now. We're a little aggy, but it's par for the course for how New Yorkers are. But look, we got a game coming through tomorrow, Saturday at 8:30. Rematch, as I said, between the Knicks and the Warriors.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about that? Before we get into the game, what are your thoughts about the New York Knicks so far as a team this season?
I mean, I think the Knicks are a very good team. I believe they can come out the East, but I think they're a really good team. Maybe in year 2 of Cat, but right now, obviously, they've had some challenges against the better teams in the league. People are going to later call me a hypocrite when I talk about the Warriors because I'm saying this about the Knicks now. But, I mean, you have to be able to beat those teams. And I know also something that a lot of New York Knicks fans were not a fan of, but I am sort of in line with Becky Hammon in that, like, your best player can't be so small and you, like, win it all. And so, I would probably have some reservations regardless, but I think the Knicks are a very good team. So, I respect the Knicks, but I think Cleveland and Boston are both better teams.
I can't disagree with Cleveland and Boston being better teams right now, but you're making me upset with the whole 1A comment about Jalen Brunson. People know how I feel about that. I don't height doesn't really matter to me. The talent is there. We've seen this guy be clutch in the final moments of games. This is a guy who almost pushed for Game 7 against the Miami Heat in his first year here. I believe if the Knicks weren't fully injured facing against the Indiana Pacers, I thought they could have gone, into the Eastern Conference Finals and faced Boston last year. But we're not going to go down that road. That's how I believe. That's how much I have faith in Jalen Brunson. But to your point, look, it's tough to, especially in year 1 where you're trying to compete for a championship and you don't beat the Cavs, you don't beat the Celtics, and it's not that you're losing to them. You're getting waxed by them. You're getting owned. And so I can't, it's hard for me to really, dispute that. I know you're an attorney. I know you're still licensed. I'm licensed. We're both far from doing our legal careers, but hey, I understand when it comes to being rational and analytical that yes, you have to show it out there on the court, and they haven't done that so far, but hopefully, they can do that, especially with Mitchell Robinson coming back, but that is what it is. But what are your thoughts about the Warriors after getting Jimmy Butler? Because they started off hot, went down a little bit, get Jimmy Butler. Now this team is just rejuvenated.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Warriors are a contender.
Oh my God. Oh man. They're already making ketchup and tomato soup out of you in the chat right now. They're throwing tomatoes, but that's just that. I'm telling you, that's how New Yorkers are.
Listen, everything you said about Jalen Brunson is all true. And also, NBA history tells us that small guards don't win. Steph is one of the exceptions. Isaiah Thomas is one of the exceptions. Unless Jalen Brunson becomes an exception, he has to do it. Stephen Curry has 4 rings. So having more faith in him, an all-time great, one of the best players in NBA history, to me is not outlandish, So I'm sorry, Knicks fans, but you'll have to get over that.
I would also say that 2 of those championships did have a nice, tantalizing player in Kevin Durant, but
they did, but they won before Kevin Durant and they won after him. And no team does it with just one star. So to me, it's not really about whether like Steph didn't have help. I'm not trying to suggest that. I'm just saying, like, even if you take away the KD chips, Steph has two without him, right? As the best player on the team, right? It does not happen in NBA history. So like when people say that, like me, I'm using the history of the game. It's not hate on Jalen Brunson. If he does it and he becomes the next exception, I will give him his shutouts, you know? But I don't think Jalen Brunson is as good of a player as Stephen Curry. I think he's a great player, but I don't think he is Stephen Curry player. So until he does that or he demonstrates that, I can't put that kind of belief in him. But if I was a fan of the team, I'm sure that I would.
Okay, so let's stick with the Warriors then. Let's stick with the Warriors, so that way you don't get because I know where this chat's going already. There's fumes already. It starts to be there's smoke. There might be fire very soon in the chat. So let's talk about the Warriors for a second. So you believe that they're championship contenders? Is this because of the acquisition of Jimmy Butler and just seeing how the team has performed, or is this like did you have that belief before they even got Jimmy Butler?
No, I didn't have that belief. I have the belief that if you give Steph help, the Warriors always have a chance because he's that level of player.
Mm,
But he clearly was not having that help. Or I mean, yes, they started off hot at the beginning of the season, but even many of us watching it was like, this is great, but can they sustain this? And then we saw how it started to go, right? So
hmm
he needed a true co-star. He needed a co-star last year, even when Clay was still on the team, because Clay wasn't that anymore. So did I expect what's happening right now with Jimmy Butler? No, I didn't. Like I expected Jimmy to help a lot. Uh I didn't expect this. Like like it just and for it to happen so quickly. Like usually when you bring a player in, and that's why I said maybe like in year two with Cat because it usually takes time to gel, bring in a new player, you know. So I was like, I thought they could now with Jimmy coming. I thought like they could be in the playoff mix, and then
mm.
you get a little luck, you see. But I was not like Warriors are a contender this year, absolutely not. But it's now watching, you know, the number of games that they've won. They've only lost one game with
Hmm.
Jimmy actually playing. And I think it's fair for people who say they haven't played anybody real. You know, I actually wish that Jalen Brunson was playing because that doesn't mean that the Warriors are just going to win because he's out, but I want to see them against like a really good team, you know. And if you're missing Jalen Brunson, I get that Cat will still be there. I get that the Knicks are still a good team, but like that's their best player. And so you know, I would love to see that because you want to see how they stack up against some of the better teams in the league now with Jimmy Butler there. And so they're going to have some tests coming up. They have the Knicks coming up, they have the Bucks coming up, they have Denver. So, you know, they will be challenged a little bit more and we can see how they stack up against those teams. But based on how they're looking, based on where their offense is and their defenses, I believe they're top 3 in defense and top 4 in offense, right? But like those are all the markers of a contending team. So why wouldn't I believe it? If the numbers and the metrics show me that they are doing the things that a team that wants to contend does, why wouldn't I believe that?
Hey, those are all valid points. You know, we talk like there's been reports. Shout out to my guy Law Murray for the Athletic, who was just on the show last week. Wrote a fantastic article how you need to have a top 10 offense and defense. The Warriors are doing that right now with Jimmy Butler, so they're certainly in that category to to be catapulted in that. I actually have them in my top four as like teams coming that could come out of the West. I put them up there with OKC, Lakers, Denver. I think the Warriors are right up there. I think it all depends on matchups at the end of the day. Um, I'm probably I think for me, it's probably between OKC and the Lakers right now. I think the Lakers are just extremely dynamic. It's just a cheat code just having Luca and LeBron on the same team. But I definitely have the Warriors up there in that top four coming out of the West. The West just got so much more interesting after the trade deadline with
For
Jimmy
sure.
going to the Warriors, Luca going to the Lakers. Like both those teams were like, hey, let's see what happens. Now it's like, yo, all right, this is completely different.
For sure.
So for sure that they're like I do like where they are in the West. How do you feel about the Warriors competing against those other teams that I mentioned, the Nuggets, the Lakers, and Thunder? Is there any team that, between that list, is there any team that you're worried about, or you're just like they'll have a shot either way because they have Steph on that team?
And Jimmy and just the team is good. I mean, like this is where people are gonna be like, "Oh, you're a cocky Warriors fan." Yes, I am. You know, like
Hey,
They've won
I appreciate that you're rocking it true and blue on the show.
they've won 4 titles. Steph Curry is one of the best players to ever play the game, not just like one of the best. And right now he's first of all, he's not having to carry the full load anymore. Like he didn't even play well in their game last night where he just scored his 4,003, right? Like he did not play well largely because they said we're going to do this like Davidson defense and like we're not going to let Steph go off. And you know what? The rest of the team did. They just got back Jonathan Kuminga. In the minutes where Jimmy Butler is playing without Stephen Curry, they are winning those minutes. They are winning them. That didn't even always happen in the KD era, right? And I'm not suggesting in any way that Jimmy Butler is a better player than Kevin Durant, but like historically, the Warriors don't win the minutes without Steph, and I think you saw a little bit of that when the Warriors and the Knicks played the first time because the game was kind of back and forth, and then like in that fourth quarter when both of them were on the court together, they just like were able to close out that game. And so they just work really well together, better than I expected. And when you add in Draymond Green, who, as frustrating as he is, I'm sure to Knicks fans and to many Warriors fans as well, he's still one of the best defenders of this generation. They're just really potent. And like I said, you just got back Jonathan Kuminga, who's great last night. You have Moses Moody, like looking like he's finally taking that leap as a player. I don't know what Gary Payton, this mask, has done to him, but he's like going off. Like they're just getting contributions from so
Mm.
many guys. Even when they played the Knicks last time, Brandon Pajimski, I mean, he was like just hitting a lot of shots. And they have rotation players and bench guys who can contribute, and then you have Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond. So I think they're a legitimate contender.
Salute to Knicks Station. Thank you all for tuning for another Game of the Week preview. With me on the other side is none other than Natalie Esquire. She's the producer and digital creator, I should say, at NBC Sports. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button for your squad. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. All right. Natalie, now you brought up the games. You talked about the recent game between the Knicks and the Warriors, and you're certainly right where you know it was an evenly matched game. It went back and forth, and you're starting to see like the Warriors gel, and the contributions that you're getting everybody from the Warriors team, and we were seeing the same thing for the Knicks. We're seeing the contributions. Knicks obviously had the lead, and then the tide completely shifted once it got into the second half. And so I'm looking forward to see how the Knicks in particular adjust to the Warriors now after playing them the first time on their own home turf. Now we're going to the Warriors turf. We're going to the Chase Arena, and it's going to be different for the Knicks this time because we don't have Jalen Brunson. He's out due to an ankle injury. But the thing is that this team is showing that they're able to, come together as a unit. We're starting to see the talent on this team outside of Jalen Brunson. Watching this team day in and day out, it's a lot of Captain Clutch where it comes to Jalen Brunson, go ISO ball in the last 5 minutes of every fourth quarter, saving the Knicks. And now, like we see this game against Portland, who's a scrappy young team. All right, I know people are like they look at the record, they're like, that's a garbage team, scrappy young team.
Easy win. Like
Yeah,
they're not yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. And so you see Mikal just ball out, especially after, the headlines saying playing too many minutes, get the bench units in there, iron that conversation out with Tibbs right before the game started. This guy goes out there, looks like a hero, and you're starting to see contributions from OG. And the entire team is looking like it's, starting to gel in a different way where we're starting to see this team understand team basketball yet again, which is what they were thriving on at the beginning of the year. So I'm looking forward to see how this team matches up now to the Warriors. What were your takeaways from that first game, though, that you expect to come into game two after that Knicks Warriors matchup?
Excuse me.
Oh, you're all
From the
good.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm just dealing with a little bout of bronchitis. I thought it was like a really good win for the Warriors from that perspective. Like, for them, like they were down, they came back, a little gritty, I thought it was a good win for them. Uh Carl Anthony Towns did not play. So each time you're dealing with a really key piece for the Knicks being out. So it's somewhat hard to assess, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I thought it was a good win for the Warriors. Uh it was also like a back-to-back for them. So that also added to like why it was good for them. From the Knicks perspective, I'm sure they just feel like they don't want to lose, but I don't think it was a bad loss for them. It's like you're missing a really big important piece of your team. So if I were the Knicks, especially coming into Chase, because the Knicks have a history of actually playing well and winning in Chase. It's like every year it's like Steph goes to MSG, he don't lose. So I kind of just was like, the Warriors aren't losing this game because Steph don't lose at MSG. But the Knicks do come into Chase and they win. And they that's what happens. Like almost, and sometimes it's like blow, like they come in there and like hurt the Warriors. So I don't think that the Warriors should be like going into this game lightly or taking it lightly, because teams, I feel like sometimes when they're down one of their guys, they play even a little better, and uh Cat may have some extra motivation coming into this game. I mean, he said all the right things after, like, I'm gonna leave with love and whatever he said. And I believe that from him. But still, like, it doesn't mean that it won't be motivation for him. It doesn't mean that some of his teammates may have not liked Draymond's comments, and you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
look, they're coming into Chase. Warriors fans are like very invigorated right now. The team is playing well. So you're still going into hostile territory. But Jonathan Kuminga coming back to the lineup changes that equation a little bit, because they do have someone now that can match the athleticism, a little bit, that they didn't have in that first matchup. But at the end of the day, the Warriors cannot defend inside. And so I feel like, I know Cat can shoot, but I feel like this is a game where, like, yeah, if your shots are falling, then that's all good. But I don't really ever think teams can like outshoot the Warriors, So like, you need your shots to obviously fall, but I think they should take advantage of the paint. The Warriors cannot defend in there, and like, they don't have anyone to like. I love Quentin Post. He's been playing well for them, but like, he ain't doing nothing to stop, Cat or any other pick on the team. So they should look at like what just happened with the Detroit game. Yes, the Warriors did ultimately end up winning that game, but the Warriors could not stop Detroit, and the Knicks are better offensively than Detroit, so they can really, that to me, that's where they would have an advantage over the Warriors, and then try to turn them over. Like, they definitely been taking care of the ball better. Jimmy handles the ball a lot. He does not turn over the ball as much, but try to turn them over. They're a team that's prone to turnovers, and try to score in transition, try to get like some easy buckets. I do think that's more of a key to them winning. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Warriors need to and should win that matchup. They're missing their best player, so the pressure should be on them. They're missing Jalen Brunson. Like, it would be a bad loss for the Warriors if you lose to the Knicks, not because the Knicks aren't a good team, but they're down their best player. You're at home, and you need to win this game to keep your playoff seeding in the West, because things are like really tight there. So, but I don't think it's an unwinnable game for the Knicks, not by any means.
Yeah, look, this game, I think you hit the nail right on the head with all this, right? So this is not an unwinnable game for either one of these teams, even with the Knicks missing Jalen Brunson. The way that this team has been playing, they're playing an inspired brand of basketball. Like I said earlier, like, this team is now starting to play more a team-centric offense. Deuce McBride has had some good games. Mikal Bridges is showing up. OG. We know Josh Hart. He's like the certified X factor amongst the Knicks fan base. Although, I like, we'll talk about X factors in a minute, but like, I get it. Josh Hart is Mr. Do Everything, rebounding, scoring, playmaking.
I
He
like
does it
Josh
all.
Hart.
Love Josh Hart. Josh Hart like embodies New York City to the T. A gritty player that goes out there and gives it 110%. That's what New Yorkers want to see. And then Cat, you talked about it, one of the best scoring bigs out there, especially at the paint, what he's been doing this season, and knocking down threes. And while this team is good at knocking down threes efficiently, they're not going to put up the same amount of volume, although the Tibbs would like that, as what the Warriors can do, right? I mean, especially with Steph, there's that's essentially what turned the game around. Warriors just started knocking down open threes. And so that's the big question in this matchup for me. And I guess since, you brought up, defending the paint for the Warriors, we can go to some key stats right now for this matchup, right? So you talked about it. Warriors, not a good team that defends the paint that well. I'm looking at cleaning the glass. They ranked 20th this season when it comes to protecting the rim. Teams are shooting 67% against this team. Conversely, for the Knicks, it's 3 pointers. And so this could be that game once again where it's all right, Knicks, let's work the paint. Warriors, let's look for some threes. Now, Jimmy, Draymond, that's not necessarily those guys, but I do know that you got role players that will certainly, put up shots and try to knock down threes with Steph. So it's going to be that, opposite, it's going to be like opposite day for this game. I do appreciate you bringing up that. What do you think about that though? Like I know you mentioned the team, like the Knicks should attack the paint. What do you think about the Warriors just putting up that many threes against the Knicks? Do you think that's going to be the turning point?
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors are always going to shoot a lot of threes, and that's ultimately why they won that game I just brought up against Detroit because their threes started falling because they weren't shooting the ball well. So if Cat is feasting in the paint, if the Knicks are scoring a lot in the paint, then the Warriors have to be shooting well or they have to try to defend it. So it's one or the other. So yes, I expect them to put up a lot of, shots. The difference with this team is now, before, if Steph was not hitting threes and no one else was hitting threes, they kind of had nothing else they could go to. Jimmy Butler changes that equation. And you saw this in New York, his ability to get to the free throw line. He had 9 free throw attempts, I think, in that last game. And so that's not going to change in any game. So he can do that. So if he's really smart, he's a really high IQ player. So if they need to do that, he has the ability to do that for them. But so does Jonathan Kuminga. And he wasn't in the last game, but now he's back. And he's
Mm,
also someone who can get into the paint and score for them and give them some alternate looks. So that's why it's an interesting matchup to me, because with the addition of Kuminga plus having Jimmy, things that used to be really, really glaring weaknesses for the Warriors are not as big of a deal as they used to be.
for sure. And so you're talking about how the Warriors are going to be able to slow down this game with Kaminga, with Jimmy, because they're physical players. They like to attack, get into the paint. They're going to
Yeah.
get fouled. They'll get to the free throw line, slow the game down, get some free points, certainly. And that's not really the Knicks' MO, unless Jalen Brunson and even Cat. Those are the two guys who get to the free throw line the most, just because of their, Cat working the paint, being a physical player, Brunson being a downhill guard. Without Brunson, that's up for Mikal Bridges. Now he did get to the line 6 times. Last game against Portland, we're like, whoa, 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 let's go. Hallelujah. Finally, this guy decided to take some contact. Hopefully he can do that again against the Golden State Warriors. That's what we're looking for too. I mean, if the Warriors are going to do that, you got to fight, got to, you know, play the same type of game. But you touched on this earlier with the turnover rates. Both teams like to protect the ball. Um, and this is where I see like the Knicks needing to like get out there. They're not necessarily known for being a fast break team. The Warriors can do that. I need the Knicks to do that. They can do it efficiently, but you don't think the Warriors are like a good team that goes out to the fast break? Because I feel like
The
they
Warriors
could,
can play fast, but they
yeah.
can also turn the ball over. So they'll give the Knicks opportunities.
Well,
You
that's
know,
what I'm saying. Is
it's
like
a
the Knicks
matter
need
of
to
the
take
Knicks
advantage of
can
those
capitalize on.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the Knicks need to take advantage of those opportunities. Warriors, you talk about them protecting the rock, especially since it doesn't have to be all on Steph. That's where I'm looking for the Knicks to like take advantage. They're 16th right now in the league when it comes to fast break scoring. So they're I know they're placed in the middle, but some nights they look better than others. This is where I'm looking for them to just go out there and take advantage. You talk about the Warriors, like if they're turning the ball over because they're just playing a little reckless, I needed the Knicks to capitalize on those opportunities just because we don't have Jalen Brunson. Cat, awesome score, but you gotta get the free points where it need be.
I have a question. I don't want you to deviate too much from your game plan, but
Sure, and it doesn't bother me. I like questions. I like when people ask me questions.
what are your thoughts on Mikal Bridges?
What are my thoughts on Mikal Bridges? Oh my goodness. I was ecstatic when they made the trade. He started off the season obviously shaky. December was a really good month for him. The Christmas Day game was obviously fantastic, but he's just been an inconsistent player, being a Nick, and I think part of that, I keep saying it's kind of like the Quentin Grimes situation for all Knicks fans, and they know where, Grimes was when he was a Knick, he had this inability to be aggressive on it, like for himself to go get his own shots, because that's kind of how Tibbs runs this thing. It's a read and react system that he likes to run. He likes to give his players a lot more leeway to go create their own shots. Grimes was never aggressive to go create his own shot, and then Tibbs, this is where Tibbs is at fault. He never really created or designed plays to get guys going, to get them, confident and comfortable. And that's kind of the same thing for Mikal Bridges. So because of that, he's been frustrating to watch, and especially defensively. We're looking for him to be our best defender against the top perimeter guy, and that's just been up and down. Like
I
you'll
think his
see
defense
against
is a
the
little
you
fake.
what'd you say?
I think his defense is a little fake.
A little fake. Wow. Getting really throwing shots around here. I look, there's nights where he had
Like completely fake, a little fake.
look, he had a good night against De'Aaron Fox and Trey Young, and then there's other matchups where you're like, well, come on, man. It's like against Steph, who was dealing with an ankle injury. I would like him to be a little bit more physical, try to throw Steph off a little bit more. And those are like things that, you know, that's just next level defense that I'm looking for. So that's where he's been a little inconsistent. But the last couple of games, this is where you're like, oh, we all love him again because
Right.
helping, he's producing, and so it's certainly a roller coaster ride. But we're looking for him to be a little bit more consistent.
I'm sure I just jinxed it. Like he's gonna probably play really well, and then people are gonna be like, "See, that girl don't know what she's talking about."
Don't worry. We got our resident Mikal Bridges president, CK2K. He does the play by play. He loves Bridges, and depending on the night, we could be aggravated with Bridges, or we could be very happy and how he's performing. But that's how it goes around these parts, man. There's only very few players that are like, all right, they get the pass. Like Brunson, Josh Hart, those guys. We already know what we're gonna get out of them. Cat has earned a lot of good graces based on how he started the season. Bridges, OG, these guys were up and down. It's like, yo, man, what do we like? We traded 5 first-round picks for Bridges. What's going on here? You paid OG 212 million. What's happening now? Like we gotta be, consistency is what it's all we want around here,
I
man.
like
Just
OG though for
consistency.
you guys.
I do, you
I'm
know.
I'm lukewarm on Mikal, but
Mm.
okay.
Well, what are your thoughts on Macau? Like what makes you lukewarm on Macau?
I mean, I just think a lot of it. I told you, I think his defense is a little fake,
Mm.
and I think all that stuff he was doing in Brooklyn maybe like overvalued him a little bit, but I wouldn't have. I don't love that trade for the Knicks. I didn't like it at the time. I still don't love it, but
Mm.
it is what it is. It happened. So, the main thing, like I said, I mean, I don't. At the end of the day, I think he's not. I think I want to be careful when I say this because it's
Uh-oh.
like, no, it's sort of like, okay, it was completely different situations, obviously, but you know, Andrew Wiggins came to the Warriors and he was like good for the Warriors. He became an all-star. So that helped boost his stock, but that's because like he was in like a certain kind of role. I think Mikal goes to the Nets, and so he has the ability to have the ball more, do more. So like his stats, he looks like it's a little inflated, but like I don't really
Mm.
think that's the player who he is all I'm saying. So I think there's limits to what he's going to be able to do for you. And so, with someone like a Brunson now and needing Mikal to be one of the players who step up a little bit more, it's like there are probably nights he can do that. Um, and maybe against like lesser teams he can probably do that, but I am curious to see what he will contribute versus a team like the Warriors. Again, he may surprise me, and there's some who might be like, he's been good at guarding stuff in the past. Okay. But we'll see.
Hey, guarding top players is just, you just don't want to make the night easy for them, right? You just trying to make it as tough as possible. Every shot should be tough.
Agreed. You're never gonna stop a top player, but I think Bridges has been sort of billed as like this like defensive stopper of players and this and I think his defensive reputation is a little inflated. That's all.
Mm. I think for Bridges, I see where you're saying with that. I think the thing is, like, I could see where you're coming from with the stats inflated. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I truly think it's somewhere in the middle between what he did out in Phoenix and what he did out in Brooklyn, and that's all we're asking for. But he's also supposed to be the third option, and so it's tough. Like, I think it's just very tough to be the third option on a Tibbs-led team, and especially like we've seen it with other teams too, where and I'm not saying he's the talent of like Chris Bosh, but like when the expectation is that and you're asking for a guy to produce at that level who is not necessarily that,
And that's
it's
why I
going to
compared him to Andrew Wiggins. It's like you these players are who they are. And so when you're asking them to do more than they are, and by the way, I love Andrew Wiggins. So I'm not like everyone knows I'm like the biggest Andrew Wiggins, but it's just like he works in a certain kind of role. And now when you're asking him to step out of that or do more, then the results are going to be more mixed. That's all.
Hmm. All right. We'll see tomorrow. Mikal, I know you're hearing this right now, Mikal, and I know you're just
Oh
going to go out there
boy.
tomorrow.
Oh boy.
Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in for another Game of the Week preview. With me on the other side is none other than Natalie Esquire. She's a producer and digital creator at NBC Sports. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for the squad. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. People, let me tell you about Underdog Fantasy and why I love it. All right, I like to think I know a little bit more than like what's going on out there on the basketball court and the sports world. So, I like to put a little money down, try to earn some money back. And when I'm watching the NBA, look, man, I'm gonna put a ticket in. I think I know what Brunson's gonna do on a night-to-night basis. I know we don't have Brunson, but we got Mikal Bridges. Mikal's listening to Natalie right now saying, "Hey, I'm going off tomorrow. Don't worry, Alex. I got you. I got you covered for tomorrow." So let me tell you what you got to do. You choose 2 to 8 players, and you can mix and match amongst any sports. It could be NBA, NHL, whatever it may be. That could be your ticket. And all you got to do is just choose higher and or lower on any stat given. So let's say tomorrow for 22 and a half points for Mikal Bridges. All you got to do is just choose higher or lower if you believe Mikal is going to do better than or worse than. And that's all you got to do for the remaining 2 to 8 players that you choose. Now, the more players you choose, the more money you win. And if you're not confident that you think, let's say you choose four players. If you don't believe it, you can go the insured route. So you can go get 3 out of 4 right, or the more that you choose, let's say you choose 8, maybe you just need to get 6, 7, or 8 right to still earn money. So that's one thing you can do on Underdog Fantasy. The other thing, you can put on your GM hat and do daily fantasy. And so you could be your own GM, create your own teams, and just compete against your friends. JD, CP, and myself, we like to do the daily fantasy drafts. Put down a little bear money, lunch money, see who's better, man. Who's got the better GM cap, and that's all you got to do. So make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right, let's get back to this thing. All right, Natalie, let's talk about the key matchup for tomorrow, and let's talk about our X factors. So, key matchup for tomorrow for me is what I'm looking at is OG Anunoby and Jimmy Butler. And look, no Jalen Brunson. That was the first when I first previewed the Warriors and Knicks game last week. It was Brunson versus Steph. Obviously, the two showmen. Those guys could put up points. This one, I think it's going to go down to the battle of the wings between OG Anunoby, Jimmy Butler. OG guarded Jimmy in the first matchup. We know the physicality of Jimmy. He's going to want to get into the paint, get into the teeth of the defense, be that facilitator, as you talked about, get to the free throw line, slow the game down. We can grab some boards. We know how his defense is. And I think OG is once again going to have to get the Jimmy Butler assignment, try to slow him down while try to create his own shots and not necessarily be the best creator, but what he has shown is that he's a good off-ball creator. So finding the cutting lanes, getting those easy dunks, finding his open shot on the 3-point line, and that's what I'm expecting from OG. And he's been getting a lot of points. Got like 20 points last game against Portland. Hopefully, he can do the same thing against the Warriors. But that's my key matchup for tomorrow's game: OG Anunoby versus Jimmy Butler. What do you think about that matchup?
I mean, OG played well in the last game versus the Warriors. I'm trying to think if I would say he won that matchup. I mean, if you're just looking at the box score, probably, but I think Jimmy's ability to constantly get fouls on him. I mean, I remember OG being really frustrated, throwing up his hands sometimes, just like, Jimmy's a smart player. And also for the Warriors, like last night, you can look, Jimmy did not score a lot, but he still really helped the team. So winning that matchup with Jimmy is not just about like scoring more than him, you have to be able to stop him from being able to create for others, right? He knows how to create mismatches. He is assisting, he's setting up other players. He knows how to bait you into fouls, so it's things like that. So like Jimmy's a really smart player. So I think OG is going to have to definitely produce similarly to what he did like the last time, but I think he has to play smarter. Like you're going to have to really, and I get it. I mean, it's not as extreme as like a James Harden, but Jimmy can get fouled. So you have to watch the tape and, look and really try not to give him those fouls because that really helped the Warriors in the last game. And at any point where like if their threes are not falling, if the shots are not falling, he can just slow down and muck up the game and do that. And if OG cannot stop him from doing that, then you're not winning that matchup.
Yeah, look, and in that last matchup that you're talking about, that's what Jimmy did in the second half. He had 9 free throw attempts, knocked down 7 of them. And look, Jimmy's a very physical player. OG's a very physical defender. I'm looking forward to that matchup. I like that. I like that matchup for this game. You know, it's just going to be interesting without Brunson. How do you match what Jimmy can do? So this is going to be me looking at Cat and Mikal once again to get to the free throw line, slow things down, and just make it that much more of a tightly contested game. Like this is an all hands on deck type of situation for the New York Knicks without Jalen Brunson. So OG's going to have his hands full. Mikal's going to have his hands full. And then I guess by process of elimination, this is where I'm looking for Karl Anthony Towns to go off. You know,
It
you
has to
just
be a cat game.
it
Has to
has to
be.
be a cat. Has to be. And look, you like to throw the war, not you specifically, but the Warriors like to throw Draymond out there at the 5. And so for us, we got a 7-footer, 2 of them, one Cat, one Mitchell Robinson. So this is where Cat has to go feast. I mean, if the Warriors want to go run small, got to go out there with Karl Anthony Towns, work the paint, and he's got to knock down threes too. And as you mentioned, we didn't have him in the first matchup. So I'm very curious to see if he's going to play some inspired basketball after what Draymond said. We don't have to go down that whole rabbit hole of what Draymond said and all whatnot. But I think this is where, by process of elimination, Karl Anthony Towns has to show up in this one and go be that, with Brunson here, he's that second option, and he's gonna have to show why he's getting paid that money that he is to be that best scoring big in the NBA. So I'm looking for a big cat game tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to be big. I think he's going to be extra motivated to be big. So I'm actually expecting a good Karl Anthony Towns game. I think you're going to see, I mean, the Warriors do like to put Dre at the 5, but they're also trying to manage his minutes at the 5 and not play him that much. So I think you are going to see a little Quinton Post. I think you potentially could see some Kevin Looney tomorrow, depending on how things are going. So we'll see. But I think you could also see some of those players out there, and I could also see them getting like moved out really quickly
Mm.
if they're if they're struggling. But like I said, we don't have a big rotation that can defend the paint. So Cat can really go to work if he wants to.
Yeah, and we're gonna see if he does that. Now let's get to our X factors and round this thing out, Natalie. My X factor. Well, I'll say, what am I doing? I'm going a little crazy. You're the guest. What am I doing over here? You're the guest. I'm losing track of myself. Since you're the guest, who's your X factor for the Warriors tomorrow? Who's gonna be that guy or that just changes the entire outlook of the game for you?
That's hard for me. If Brunson was playing, I would have said Moody because I thought
Mm.
he did a really good job defending Brunson last game. Um, let's go with Jonathan Kuminga.
Jonathan Kaminga. Okay.
He's just coming back. Uh, like I said, with his athleticism, he brings like another dynamic to the Warriors. And also like the Knicks didn't have to play him last game. And like, you know how it is. A player hasn't played for a while. So it's not like there's recent tape on him. So you'd have to like go back. So I just don't know how properly like the scout will be for him or anything like that. So I feel like Jonathan Kuminga could be an X factor. I mean, there's a number of guys though, like if Brandon Pajemski is shooting well, like I said, Gary Payton has been playing like masked Gary Payton has been playing like who's this player? Like, so any of those guys, but let's go Kaminga. I'm also curious, he hasn't like been like a regular rotation player, but they're at home and just depending, I'm just really curious if like the Warriors might bring Knox out, considering
Kevin Knox. Oh my
yeah.
goodness gracious.
I don't really think he's gonna be like an X factor, but it would just be funny, because he used to be, on the Knicks.
Oh brother.
But I know you guys don't care about him, but he's played well for the Warriors in the minutes that he's played. He was doing his thing in the G League. He's trying to make his way back. And, players always have extra motivation versus their old teams, right? They could not play well every night, but their old team is there. And all of a sudden they're like, whoever. So, but I'm gonna stick with Kaminga as my answer.
No, man. Now you're really placating to the ears of CP and CK. Corner boy Kev is what they used to call that guy when he was a Knick because he was just knocking down threes from the corner. Look, I'm happy for Kevin Knox that he has another opportunity in the league. I'm glad to see that he's doing well out in Golden State. But if I have to watch a Kevin Knox revenge game, I'm gonna be besides myself. But that's besides the point. So you got Jonathan Kaminga as your X factor. I'm gonna go with Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride has now been thrusted into the starting rotation to being the starting point guard for the Knicks, and he's been impressive. Not gonna lie, uh, off the bench, his role is just to be a knockdown shooter, just go score, go get some buckets because he can't. He's got a good three ball now. He's got a high arcing mid range jumper. I'm impressed with how well he's now decided to drive when getting into the paint. And watching him these last two games play point guard, he says like he said he played point guard before. Now it just takes him a little bit back to get comfortable again. And that's certainly true. I like the pick and roll that he's doing with Josh Hart. I like how he's just getting downhill and just, drawing everybody in and finding 3-point shooters on the perimeter. Deuce McBride's gonna be my X factor tomorrow because even in the game against Portland, he didn't have a great game. Defensively, he was fine, but he was still doing stuff to get guys activated for the starting rotation. And he had a great game prior to, who was it, against the Sacramento Kings. So I'm looking for Deuce McBride to be my X factor for tomorrow. I'm real, and we don't need the greatest Deuce game. He doesn't need to drop 30, but he's just got to be consistent with the shot and just be the playmaker that he's shown that he can be these last two games for the Knicks to be in position to win tomorrow against the Golden State Warriors. So I got Deuce McBride. You got Jonathan Kaminga.
Yeah.
Should be a
If
good
I
one.
was picking an X factor for the Knicks, I would pick Josh Hart. But
Josh Hart. There we go. The certified X Factor. I I could for a while it was actually Mikal Bridges I was choosing every single game as my X factor just because he was so up and down. I know you're not too thrilled with that answer, but Josh Hart is the certified X factor for the entire regular season. We know what Josh Hart does. I mean, honestly, to me, it's just not even an X factor anymore because he does it every single game, and I'm just like, all right, man. I don't even know what I can't even expect any less out of you. Actually, when he does and you see when his knees bothering him and he's taking it on any given night, I'm like, that looks weird. I'm like just that's just strange. But I totally understand why you would choose Josh Hart. But I
yeah,
like
and
your
for me, it's really about like what he can potentially do defensively and just like deflections. Like, they have to turn the Warriors over. Like they have to create turnovers tomorrow. Tomorrow, right? Yeah. And so I just feel like that it's obviously he can do more. So I'm not limiting his game to that, but obviously he's energy guy. Like, he's like he's in ways like what Gary Payton does for the Warriors. And so if he can do that on the opposing end, I think that would just be really helpful and key for the Knicks. But I like your pick too. My pick would just be different.
hey, hey, I get you. I get you. But Natalie, I appreciate you coming through. Please let our listeners know where they can find you if you got any upcoming work we should be on the lookout for.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, if anybody are women's basketball fans, I just did an interview with Juju Watkins. So she's the
Nice.
hottest thing in women's college basketball. So you can definitely check that out on the NBC Sports YouTube page. And there's a playlist for On Her Turf. That's where most of my content lives. So yeah, I've actually done a few interviews recently. Chicago Sky head coach. So if you're into Angel Reese and what the Chicago Sky are doing, you may want to check that out. So definitely go there. That's where my weekly segments are. And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, any of those places at Natfluential, NATFLUENTIAL.
Nice. Appreciate you coming through once again, Nat. And look, make sure to go give Natalie a follow on Twitter and all social media. As she said, she does great work. All right, make sure to give her a follow. Make sure to follow all of her content. I'm definitely going to be checking out that interview that you did with Juju Watkins because she is a fascinating player. I definitely want to go check that out. So I will be putting eyes on that. Natalie, once again, thank you for coming through. And Knicks Nation, thank you for coming through and tapping in for another Game of the Week preview. Make sure that thumbs up button for your squad. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. And look, if you can't catch these show lives, you know what you can do. You can be part of the replay gang. Catch this the next day. Catch this afterwards. Just go to YouTube. You already know what to do. And if you can't catch it live or you can't catch it on YouTube, we're on every audio listening platform: Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, all the stitch, you name it. We are there. So make sure to tap in. We're everywhere, located everywhere. And make sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Go find the great written content by our writers over there. We got everything to catch your interest if you're interested in New York Knicks basketball. All right. All right, everyone. Shout out to all you. And hold on, got a super chat from Tuto Azzurri from Italy. Shout out to you, my man, with the $5 super chat. Says massive respect to Big Al and all diehard Knicks fans across the pond. Greetings from our entire rugby club, currently training in Germany. And then we say, look, man, I don't speak Italian, so I can't even say that. So I won't even butcher it, but appreciate you for tapping in and the $5 super chat. And salute to all the regulars in here. John Talento, P McG. Shout out to you. We got Zach in here. We got Thomas Donnery. Shout out to you. We got who else we got in here? Man? We got YO Ed. Shout out to all you for being in here. Shout out to all of Knicks Nation. Appreciate you all once again. We'll catch you on the other side after play-by-play, and we got post-game tomorrow. All right, everyone. We out.